Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Think and Grow Rich chapter review. My name is Oliver Krentzman, and today I will be talking to you about Think and Grow Rich, chapter 13. Okay, so Think and Grow Rich, chapter 13. This chapter is on the brain, and the subheading is A Broadcasting and Receiving Station for Thought, the 12th Step Towards Riches. So what's this chapter all about? This chapter is about the brain, and it's about the fact that the brain is this kind of sending and receiving station in our body. Now, I want to take a second to mention the previous chapter, which was on the subconscious mind. And I think this is a good time to make a distinction between the brain and the subconscious mind. The brain, right, is this organ here, you can see, and it's the physical hardware, right? It's the physical machine that gives rise to the mind. The mind is non-physical. It cannot be touched, but the brain can. And so this chapter really talks about how there are intangible forces in the world, and we're able to tap into them through the brain. The brain is this incredibly powerful machine that can both receive information and send information beyond physical information. And so we're going to get into that. Now, this I wanted to just include because I thought it was really cool is an MRI scan of a human brain. And you can just take a second to appreciate the uniqueness of this organ. Look at the folds here, these gyri and sulci. Those are the bumps and grooves on the bark, the cortex of the brain. You know, here we have this very white structure, which is the corpus callosum. It's like a bridge that connects the two hemispheres, right? This is the brainstem here. Here we have the cerebellum, the occipital lobe, and so on. And so it's just a beautiful structure, in my opinion. You know, I study the brain and I'm really interested in it. And I think that this was just a cool thing to include here. And I also want to mention that Napoleon Hill says that the greatest forces in life, I believe, in life in general, the greatest forces are intangible, right? They can't be, they're non-physical in that sense. They exist beyond the physical. And it's interesting how there's this this kind of duality between the brain being physical, but it being able to give rise to non-physical. And so we have this bridge between the kind of, you know, the physical and the more esoteric, the more spiritual realms. So here we have the the philosophy of success cascade. You can see we are here at the brain. We're almost at the sixth sense, and that's very exciting. Almost at the end. So here I wanted to mention, so in the book, there's two scientists that Napoleon Hill mentions. Now, remember, the book was released, it was published in 1937, so it was written several years prior, or, you know, leading up to 1937. And at the time, you know, neuroscience, the field of neuroscience was really in its infancy in many respects. However, Napoleon Hill was aware, I don't know if he was friends with or in communications with, but he mentions this man, the scientist, Dr. Charles Judson Herrick. And so Dr. Herrick was a neurobiologist at the University of Chicago. And he was also the founder of this Journal of Comparative Neurology, which is still in print today. It's a peer-reviewed scientific journal. And so this quote here is not Dr. Herrick's words, but it's Napoleon Hill's words, kind of informed by Dr. Herrick. And what is he saying here? He's kind of, so here's the idea, is that the brain has all of these cells, right? These neurons, these nerve cells, and 10 billion to 14 billion of them in the cerebral cortex. And he goes on to say that we know that they're arranged in a very specific pattern. They're arranged definitely, right? With definiteness of purpose, to go back to a previous chapter as we spoke about that. And so the idea that Napoleon Hill is saying here is that, is it possible, is it conceivable that all of these billions and billions of neurons are just existing for the only purpose of maintaining bodily functions? Maybe, but is it also possible that this very vast and complex network may be able to communicate with other kind of intangible forces? And here, I think in this chapter, we see this intersection between the physical, materialist, reductionist, the scientific perspective, coming to terms with and meeting this non-physical perspective, this more metaphysical perspective. And I love that. I think it's really cool. So another scientist that Napoleon Hill talks about in this chapter is Dr. Joseph Banks Rhine. And Dr. Rhine was also a neuroscientist / psychologist at Duke University. And he started this laboratory called the Parapsychology Laboratory. And they explored a lot of different topics, but in the book, what Napoleon Hill really talks about is that they were looking at, in the lab, Dr. Rhine rather, was looking at, is it possible this existence of telepathy and clairvoyance? You know, is there any scientific ground for these ideas? And and so what Dr. Rhine did was he got these participants, many participants, and he asked them to identify or to name playing cards while they were face down on a table so that you couldn't see what they were. And what he found was that there were several people, there was a kind of a subset of the participants who could regularly and correctly name the cards. And Napoleon Hill goes on to say that there was no chance that this was a coincidence or by accident or luck, because it was replicable, and they were able to do it in such a way that they showed that it couldn't have been by chance. And this is really interesting. I thought this was just fascinating. And again, just so all of these guys are ahead of their time. I don't know of any research of this at the moment. However, I'm super interested in it. I'm going to look further into it. I did look more after reading the book into Dr. Rhine, and I saw he was also doing some work with horses and looking at the telepathic communication, if that's possible, between an owner of a horse and the horse. And just fascinating that this was going on and peer reviewed too. It's really amazing. And so this ability, Dr. Rhine called extrasensory modes of perception. And I think, that's kind of a more scientific way of saying telepathy. So very, very cool stuff. Okay. So here we're veering away slightly from the book, just in the sense that this particular diagram and this part of the brain was not discussed. However, if Napoleon Hill were to have written Think and Grow Rich today, I think that this reticular activating system would be a central part of the chapter on the brain for reasons that we're about to get into. So let's just take a second to define what we're talking about here. Here we have the brain. We saw the MRI scan before. And if you look at this green highlight here, this is the brain stem, this whole structure that is leading down, and this is where the spine would begin, and then the brain stem shoots up into the brain. And so along the path as it goes up into the brain, we see this highlighted region called the reticular formation. And the reticular formation is a kind of a bundle of nerves in the brainstem, and they're filtering out information. Their job is to filter information before the information gets sent up further, deeper into the brain, to the thalamus, where then the information is distributed even more. So it's like multiple relay stations, and this is kind of the first center for the information to enter. And so what's really interesting about this part of the brain is that in addition to it filtering information, it's also regulating the wake and sleep cycle. And so as a result, we think about consciousness, right? What is consciousness? I'm very fascinated by this idea. And this goes back all the way to Rene Descartes, when he was talking about, the meditations. In his meditations, he spoke about how did he know that what he was experiencing was real and not a dream? How could he know for certain? And I think that, again, if Rene Descartes was around nowadays, this particular region of the brain, this part of the brain, would be of great interest to both him and Napoleon Hill, because we know that this is a really important region that's involved in this wakeful sleep state, as well as kind of regulating consciousness and filtering information. So why am I, including this here? Because it's not really about, this chapter is not really about consciousness, but here is why I included it, is because the reticular activating system, it's filtering information based on many things, but one of the things it's filtering based on is one of the parameters, right? The parameters that this information is being filtered by are your beliefs. So your beliefs about the world will influence the information that is sent further and deeper into the brain. And so okay, so what is that? What is the implication of that? If you are of the belief that the world is a harmful place, it's negative, and everyone's out to get you, you're going to get this confirmation bias when you go out into the world and you see a negative thing occur, and all of a sudden, oh yes, this is confirming, I know that this is the case, I believe the world is bad or whatever. And then the opposite is true, that if you believe that the world is this happy place where everything is wonderful and everything is happening for you as opposed to you, it will also be filtered through this reticular formation before it's sent up for further processing. And so the result is that when we understand, and in conjunction with the previous chapter on the subconscious mind, that we know, right, that we can influence the subconscious mind. We spoke about this in the last video, and we can do this through several different methods, but habits are a huge one. So if we start getting into the habit of affirming, right, the habit of using affirmations or autosuggestion to tell ourselves, I'm progressively moving towards my worthy ideal. I already have that which I desire. And you start to convince your body, not even yourself, your mind, but your body, you want to viscerally experience that which you desire. And if you do that, you're starting to remap, reprogram, rewire this reticular activating system to help, so that it will help you on your journey. So it's not necessarily any steps different from the previous video when we talked about influencing the subconscious mind, but this is the science behind the subconscious programming. This is what's really happening, is you're changing the wiring and the information flow in the reticular formation. And so this is really cool. Now, I also wanted to just address these these two on the slide here, the WYTAYBA. This is an acronym which stands for what you think about, you become about, I believe. Something along those lines. There was a TED talk that I saw this in. I'm going to put it in the description, because I am actually drawing a blank on the specific, I don't remember if there was an about at the end, but anyway, the second one is, of course, law of attraction, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And this is the neuroscience, one of the things that is one of the regions of interest in the brain that supports the idea of the law of attraction. What you think about, you become. What you think about, you attract. Okay. And that's cool. That's really cool. And I think that this is just an interesting note to think about, to recognize that when people, may think the law of attraction or what you think about, you become is a little bit far-fetched, it's not far-fetched for this reason, that if you start to influence and reprogram the subconscious, you are going to start to influence and rewire the reticular formation. And that's how it's going down. So with that, I want to wrap up this video. And I just wanted to kind of recap, this is chapter 13, the 12th step towards riches. The next chapter will be on the sixth sense, which is the final step in the philosophy of success. So this chapter, again, was just talking about the fact that we have these really powerful biological machines that we carry around with us, our brains. And these brains are capable of sending information and receiving information that's non-physical. And so just think about the implications of that, that if we can obtain wave vibrational patterns in the air resonant that come through, and understand that, conceptually translate it into words when we speak with each other, can we also translate other things that are beyond that and potentially in the metaphysical world? I think that that's what Napoleon Hill was getting at with the power of the brain. And so with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Please like if you enjoyed this video, like the video, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.